Thank you. Thank you, Javier. Thank you very much, everybody, for being here this afternoon. I'll just wait for the technology to wear interaction. Great. Thank you, Javier. My name is Daniel Pruce. I'm the Deputy British Ambassador here in Spain. I've been a member of the British Diplomatic Service for over 20 years. I'm 47 years old. A few years ago, I discovered that I have epilepsy. This is the dog tag that I wear all the time in case I have an epileptic seizure. What I wanted to talk to you about today wasn't so much epilepsy itself, but the impact it has had on my life since my diagnosis a few years ago. So what happened to me? I was enjoying my previous posting at the British Embassy in Bangkok back in 2011. And one evening I was at home watching television, perfectly normal evening. And then the next moment I was looking at the ceiling. I was lying on the floor, I couldn't move, I couldn't get up. I had no idea what had happened. It later became clear that I'd suffered a tonic-clonic seizure, a form of epileptic seizure where your muscles contract and stiffen, you lose consciousness, you jerk uncontrollably, and then gradually you come back. I discovered the strength of human muscles as a result of this. The contractions dislocated my left shoulder. In dislocating the left shoulder, the left arm broke, and the contractions of my back muscles fractured 6 of my spinal vertebrae. So that was why I couldn't get up, basically. I went to hospital. I was kept in for a month to sort out my back, for things to get back to how they should be. The doctors took good care of me. They weren't sure if I had epilepsy. One seizure, it's not clear. Actually, everyone can have one seizure in their lifetime. It doesn't mean you have epilepsy. Any one of us could have one seizure. It's normal. So I went on to some medication as a safeguard, as a precaution. I went back to work. Basically, I carried on as normal. And then 6 months later, the same thing happened. I was at home, I was watching television. That's not the only thing I do when I'm at home, I should say, but yeah. This occasion I was watching television. And again, the next thing I knew, I was on the floor. This time, my partner Rachel was with me, and she witnessed the seizure. And again, it was a tonic-clonic seizure. Fortunately, because she was there, she was able to protect me from more serious injury and got medical help very quickly. Again, I went to hospital. I was kept in for a few days. I didn't break anything. I did land on top of a glass and split my head open, but that was fine. I recovered after a short period in hospital. But this second seizure, although the physical injuries were much less, was much more significant for me. 2 seizures in 6 months meant I had epilepsy. My doctors subsequently diagnosed that. It meant I now had a condition which represented a fundamental change in my life, and it wasn't something from which I could just carry on. Just say a few words about epilepsy, just to set the context. It's a condition which 65 million people around the world have. 400,000 people in Spain have epilepsy, 600,000 in the UK. It's a condition characterized by seizures that start in the brain. It's a disturbance of electrical activity in the brain, which then results in a seizure. There are over 40 different types of seizure, ranging from absence seizures through to the tonic-clonic that I experienced, the muscle jerking. There's no cure for epilepsy. Seizures, when they come, are very disruptive. They disrupt what you're doing. They disrupt your life. In my case, my 2 seizures, one moment I was perfectly coherent, perfectly lucid, watching TV. The next moment I was on the floor, incoherent, injured, blooded, not aware of what was going on around me. It's a very disruptive condition. It's a condition that made me feel vulnerable. You're not in control. So one of the things which I tried to achieve very, very quickly was to re-establish that control, to stop the seizures, to end the disruption. And the route to that is medication. I've been fortunate. I've tried 3 different types of anti-epilepsy medication. The third one seems to be working. I've had 2 years without a seizure, which is great. Many people aren't that lucky. There are many of those 65 million who never find a medication that works, who have to live with the seizures and live their lives with that. So I've got a medication that stops the seizures. It seems to be working. That's great. But I found another aspect of the experience of having epilepsy which has been much more of a challenge. And that's been coming to terms with the fact that I have this characteristic, I have this condition that's part of me. I can't avoid that. And coming to terms with that and carrying on with my life has been much more of a struggle than finding a medical treatment. That's me as a baby. Back at my christening, I was a cute baby. Things gradually got worse thereafter as I grew older. No one knew at that stage, but I already had epilepsy. It was something in my genes. It's part of my genetic makeup. It didn't become apparent until many years later when I had the seizures. But the reason I wanted to share that picture with you is to reinforce this sense that this condition is part and parcel of me. It's part and parcel of who I am. I can't let it define me. Can't let it rule my life. But equally, it's inescapable. It's there. And I can't pretend it isn't there. And in coming to terms with this sense, I came up against the question of acceptance in a way that I hadn't in my life before. I had to accept that I had this condition that I didn't want, I didn't know I had it, but it was there. I could control it with medication, but I wasn't going to get rid of it. And that took me a long time to recognize there was this quality, this characteristic, which I hadn't chosen. And acceptance, for a long time, I felt would be some kind of failure, some kind of defeat, some kind of recognition, which I didn't want to make. But actually, I was wrong. Acceptance was a key element in enabling me to move forwards. It wasn't an option for me to try to get back to the person I thought I was before I had my diagnosis. Actually, for me, the key thing was to accept what I now knew I was, and then move forwards on the basis of that knowledge. But then I came up against another challenge, which was acceptance wasn't just something I could achieve on my own. Acceptance, I felt, involved other people. And this is where my job came into play. I'm a diplomat. Been a diplomat for over 20 years. At the center of my job is dealing with other people, talking with other people, being credible, being authentic, ensuring I have people's trust and that I trust them. How could I be authentic? How could I be credible in my work if I wasn't being honest and open about this new thing that I'd discovered in my life, my epilepsy? That was really tough, because it's not something which I readily wanted to expose. It wasn't an easy topic to drop into conversation. But equally, I couldn't pretend it wasn't there. I wasn't being authentic. I couldn't expect people to trust me or have confidence in me if I wasn't myself being open about this significant discovery in my life. So I started to share. I started to be more open. I started to talk to people. I started to explain the condition, the impact it was having on my life. And that felt difficult, that felt challenging. But actually, one of the qualities in me that was making it difficult, I discovered, was my own prejudices about other people and what they might think. What was getting in the way for me were my assumptions that someone might be scared if I explained my situation to them. They might pity me. They might be irritated. They might feel I was being self-indulgent. But that wasn't what other people were saying to me. That was all coming from me. It was my assumptions and my prejudices about others. So I had to get through that, and I had to recognize that actually what I should do, in my experience, was to be open, to be honest, and take a decision about what I shared with other people. I couldn't control what others would think. I shouldn't seek to try to do that. But I felt I should pay other people the respect of being honest and open with them, and they would decide what they thought of me. They would draw their own conclusions. It's not to say I don't care. Of course I care. We all care about what other people think of us. But it brought a clarity in my mind that I hadn't had before about what I could and couldn't control, the decisions that I could or could not take. And this brought an unexpected bonus. I found it gave me a fantastic sense of freedom. A fantastic sense of freedom at work, away from work, in every aspect of my life. It became strikingly clear to me that to be comfortable in my interactions with other people, to be grounded in my life, to be confident in my work, the key thing was to be honest with other people and true to myself. It didn't make me perfect, and of course, I still made mistakes about things. I still make mistakes about things. But doing those from a perspective of being honest and open and grounded, I found made it easier for me to learn from those mistakes. It gave me a much better foundation to develop and move on. And that was something I think I wouldn't have learned as emphatically, as experienced so keenly, had I not had this condition of epilepsy. This is the staff of the embassy and our consulates around Spain. We're over 200 people working for the British government here in Madrid and across the whole of the country. These are my colleagues. I have worked for the British Foreign Office for over 20 years. I've been fortunate, I think, to work for an employer that takes its responsibilities in this area seriously. When I had my seizures, the office supported me. It gave me a program to gradually come back to work. It helped me get back to a level of performance and working rhythm, which was effective. And this also brought me an awareness of a wider issue around what smart organizations do. Smart organizations create an environment where people can be themselves, regardless of their circumstances, where people can flourish and contribute, regardless of their individual situations. And actually, organizations that don't create a culture, that aren't characterized by a workplace where everyone can contribute and everyone can succeed, are organizations that are cutting themselves off from a whole range of talented individuals, from an enormous wealth of human potential. I think those organizations are dumb organizations. I'm pleased to say I don't work in one of those. So, bring this back to where I started. My conclusion was that actually the only thing I can be in my interactions with other people, my interactions with colleagues at work, in my life on the whole, is me. Now that sounds something obvious. Every management, leadership textbook that we read, every lifestyle guide that we come across includes somewhere within it that message. But it was a message that I perhaps had read in such books thousands of times, but never really learnt, never really assimilated, never really understood, until I had my diagnosis and had to come to terms with my epilepsy. So this change in my life, which I hadn't expected, which I hadn't sought, which brought many very dramatic and sometimes quite devastating consequences, actually, by bringing me face to face with a challenge, brought improvements and brought benefits, and has changed my life in many respects for the better. My journey is, I'm sure, by no stretch of the imagination complete, and the past couple of years I've discovered a lot, including a lot about myself. Being here today is part of my journey. Talking to you is another opportunity for me to be open and honest. Entonces, muchas gracias a Javier por la oportunidad de hablar hoy aquí. Y muchas gracias a todos ustedes por escuchar mi historia. Thank you very much indeed for your time. Thank you.